Good evening. I hereby call to order the action session of the Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, June 30th. Would you please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary Eccles, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold.
Here.
Commissioner Bentley.
Here.
Commissioner Cosby.
Here.
Commissioner Eccles, present. Commissioner O'Connor.
Here.
Commissioner Odle.
Present.
And President Sullivan.
Here. Thank you, Commissioner Eccles. We will now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Reviewing the proposed agenda, are there any requests for changes to the agenda as presented? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. Having adopted the agenda, we will now proceed to Section 2 of the agenda. While our schools are on summer break, we will not have performances by student artists or a presentation of the colors by our JROTC members. We wish them a fun and restful vacation and look forward to their return at the start of the school year. We do, however, have a special recognition for this evening. The board would like to recognize 3 of the district's top performing students who have also demonstrated a commitment to community service. 3 IPS students were among 842 students across the country who received $1,000 college scholarships from the Carson Scholars Fund. The fund was started by Dr. Ben Carson and his wife Candy in 1994. To qualify, students as young as 4th grade must epitomize academic excellence and have a minimum grade point average of 3.75. They must also display humanitarian qualities through community service. In addition to the scholarship, winners are also awarded an Olympic-sized medal and a trophy for their school to celebrate their accomplishments. It is our pleasure to honor IPS's Carson Scholars. I will announce them all and ask the students in attendance to come forward and be recognized. Roman Marino, 7th grader at Harshman Magnet Middle School. Phyllis Roach, senior at Crispus Attucks Medical Magnet High School. Madeline Ransford, 7th grader at Seidner Academy for High Ability Students. Congratulations to this year's Carson Scholars. We will now hear from our commissioners. Does any commissioner wish to offer comments this evening? Commissioner O'Connor.
Commissioner, I have a few comments regarding our personnel decisions we're making tonight. There's no doubt that the personnel matters in front of us this evening and the issues that surround those matters are painful and difficult. The primary concern for us as a board is to act in a way that protects the best interest and the safety of our students. I feel very comfortable speaking for every member of this board when I say that we will always act in a fashion that we believe accomplishes those goals and provides a high-quality education. We may not always agree on the action that we're taking, but I know that each commissioner is acting in a way that is consistent with that goal. In the matter in front of us today, I want to lay out for you what our duties as a board are, what our role in this process is, and how, in the issue that I'm voting on tonight, and on the second matter that I'm not able to vote on, the board will frame its process and make our decisions. We are typically a legislative body. We consider action, we take testimony, and make decisions about what should be implemented in Indianapolis Public Schools and what should not. In the 2 matters in front of us tonight, we are acting in a role that either confirms the decisions of the administration or we are repealing that decision. The law spells out what we have to do, how we have to do it, and what facts we are allowed to consider in making that decision. Those relevant facts are a fairly narrow set of facts. That process is required by law to be private, and our decisions are required to be based solely on the facts that are presented to us and directly relevant to the questions we are considering. Now, because we're dealing with very difficult decisions that will impact people's careers and ultimately people's lives, distractions will always occur. Those distractions may be pure happenstance, or they may be very well planned distractions. Regardless of which, and regardless of any feelings of animosity that may be generated by those distractions, I know this board well, and I'm comfortable speaking for all who are voting on these issues tonight, that they are professionals and that they have successfully set aside any distractions, any irrelevant facts, any personal feelings, and made serious and dispassionate decisions on only the relevant facts regarding each of these very important matters. This part of our job is very difficult, but none of us are asking for sympathy for how difficult the job may be. We are all adults who asked in one fashion or another for the public support to do this work. We do ask that you understand the perspective from which we must review this case and make a set of very impactful decisions. And we ask that you understand our primary responsibility is to act in a fashion that is in the best interest of each and every student and family in this school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Connor. Commissioner Odle.
Yes, I just want to hold up Principal Brian Williams. I attended the graduation at Broad Ripple. They did a great job. I think the students were very proud of the graduation that they had, and the entertainment and the whole ceremony was just great. Also wanted to point out that I was glad to see that our iRead scores, once they were reconciled, went up even more than what we thought year over year. So I want to commend the staff for all the work they're doing to really get better outcomes for our students. And then the other thing was we all got notice that the amount of scholarship dollars that our graduates received has gone up like $10 million to the $27 million range. So I want to commend all those students for their hard work and getting those scholarships, and we look for that to grow even more.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Arnold?
I would just like to add that I had the honor to attend the George Washington Community High School graduation, and it was a very nice event. Their valedictorian was a young lady that's an immigrant that came and worked her way up to that position. So again, kudos to not only the graduates at Washington, but to all of our graduates who made it through and are going on to be employed, enrolled, or enlisted.
Commissioner Cosby, did you have a comment? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Bentley.
I had the opportunity and pleasure to attend the Shortridge High School graduation earlier this month. I believe it was the first graduation of the International Baccalaureate program, as well as the graduation for the students that are in the traditional program, and it was an excellent program, and it was just a joyous occasion, and I think everyone was very pleased with they're creating their own traditions right now, and they did a really good job with this graduation. I also attended and actually Commissioner Odle was there as well, the Dan Wakefield Park dedication ceremony at 65th and Broadway for Indy's own Dan Wakefield. And it was a wonderful event. School 84 kindergartners were there. The ukulele group from the school entertained the guests, and there were a lot of people there from Shortridge High School, graduates from Shortridge, from Mr. Wakefield's class as well as other classes. Former Senator Lugar was in attendance. It was a wonderful, wonderful celebration of him and renaming that park where he apparently used to hang out quite frequently. I also had the opportunity to attend the 8th grade promotion ceremony at Center for Inquiry, School 2 downtown. To be perfectly transparent, my nephew was promoted out of 8th grade there, and it was a wonderful event too. Almost all of it done by the students. It was a very, very, very well done event. So lots to celebrate in Indianapolis Public Schools, and I just want to give kudos to all of our students for their hard work.
Anyone else? I have some brief comments as well this evening. The last 5 months have been a difficult time for IPS and the IPS family. We have been the focus of public attention due to a very unfortunate incident. And it's an incident that was not only itself tragic, but also was not handled well by far too many people. The board and the administration accept our responsibility for any mistakes. We are doing everything in our power to ensure that this never happens again. The safety and security of our students are our most important obligation that we have to our families. It is important to remind everyone that despite the delays in timely reporting, the alleged abuser was barred from her school and relieved of her duties at the district's very first opportunity, the morning following the evening officials first learned of the alleged abuse. Fortunately, this type of incident is rare. And because it is rare and so disturbing, it attracts a lot of attention. Unfortunately, by dominating the news about our district, it also draws attention away from many important accomplishments. Working with our students, teachers, families, staff, and education partners, we have been able to cut in half the number of IPS schools designated as failing, earned the district's highest graduation rate in our storied history, increased the African American male graduation rate by 7%, completed a landmark bargaining agreement after years of no salary adjustments, dramatically downsized the central office, and shifted more resources to schools, expanded preschool opportunities, and grew our most popular programs. There are so many examples of progress, real progress, in a district that has been at best stuck in mediocrity and at worst failing thousands of families and their children year after year. Significant and positive changes have come to IPS under the leadership of Dr. Farabee. To his credit, he has kept a steady hand at the helm of this district throughout these trying times. He has maintained a focus on the right things and not allowed the continuing coverage of this single event to slow his pace or weaken his commitment to our most important work, building a 21st century urban school system capable of uplifting lives and transforming our community. Thank you, Dr. Farabee. To our friends in the media, we understand that this has been an important story to cover. We've worked hard to be responsive to your request. We thank you for keeping the public informed on this issue, but we would also welcome your equal attention to our progress, as well as covering our challenges. What is happening in our schools on a daily basis is both inspiring and evidence that we are on the right path. I have no doubt that if you make an effort to chronicle our progress, and I know you have made an effort to chronicle our progress, I want to make that clear, you will understand why all of us are so proud about how far we've come, and much is yet to come. This evening we have no public commenters, so we will be moving on to section 4, which is special action. Item 4.1 involves the consideration of the administration's recommendation to cancel the teachers and administrators' contracts for William Jensen. The board held a private conference on Thursday, June 23rd, at the request of Mr. Jensen to consider the facts and circumstances related to the superintendent's recommended action. Vice President Odle, Secretary Echols, and Commissioners Arnold, Bentley, and O'Connor were present at the hearing. Following the private conference, the board developed findings of fact and conclusions of law in collaboration with board counsel. Only those commissioners who participated at this hearing may take action on this item. Do I have a motion to approve or deny the recommended contract cancellation?
Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt the findings of facts and conclusions of law as developed by the board and accept the superintendent's recommendation to cancel the regular teachers and administrators contract with William Jensen.
Second.
We need to call the roll. Could you call the roll, please? Secretary Eccles.
Commissioner Odle?
Aye.
Secretary Eccles, aye. Commissioner O'Connor?
Aye.
Commissioner Bentley?
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold?
Aye.
The motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Item 4.2 involves the consideration of the administration's recommendation to cancel the teachers' and administrators' contracts for Deborah Lesser. The board held a private conference on Monday, June 27th, at the request of Ms. Lesser to consider the facts and circumstances related to the superintendent's recommendation. Vice President Odle, Secretary Eccles, Commissioners Arnold, Bentley, and myself were present at the hearing. Following the private conference, the board developed findings of fact and conclusions of law in collaboration with board counsel. Only those commissioners who participated at this hearing may take action on this item. Do I have a motion to approve or deny the recommended contract cancellation?
I move that the board adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as developed by the board and accept the superintendent's recommendation to cancel the regular teachers and administrators contract of Deborah Lesser.
Second.
Secretary Eccles, will you please call the roll?
President Sullivan?
Yes.
Vice President Odle?
Yes.
Secretary Eccles, yes. Commissioner Bentley?
Yes.
And Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
The motion carries by a vote of 5-0. We will now move to the consent agenda. The items included on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect all necessary modifications. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Reviewing the treasurer's report for the month of May, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We now move to Section 7, Board Reports. There are 3 items on the agenda this evening. Commissioner O'Connor provided a brief update from the Finance Committee at Tuesday's agenda review session. Thank you, Commissioner O'Connor.
You're welcome.
Item 7.2 relates to the board's efforts to preserve and increase access to the district's historical records and archives. I am excited to welcome Indianapolis Public Library CEO Jackie Needis and Special Collections Room Team Leader Chris Marshall to present on the proposed transfer of archives and to update us on the digitization efforts. Mrs. Needis and Mr. Marshall, welcome.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening, and we're very excited about the opportunity to be of service to you. You are very busy running a school district for a new century. We are here this evening to talk to you about something from way back in the last century that we think we can be of some assistance to you. We have a proposal to house the historic records in our special collections room. With me this evening is Chris Marshall, who is the team leader for our special collections room, and he will be very involved in this process should you see fit to give us the opportunity to help like this. The school district has very, very old records stored in at least 3 current locations. And some of those locations are buildings that have futures that don't involve record storage, if you will. The one of most concern to many of us is the Mallory building, because that has perhaps a different future ahead of it. The Ed Center here, right where we are, and of course the Forest Manor school building, which is used for a lot of administrative purposes. Currently, the records that we're speaking of are in conditions such as this. You will notice in the Ed Center, the records are stored in the basement with a minimum of workspace for researchers who wish to consult them, and that does often get requested. At Forest Manor, we have some what I would call perhaps almost orphaned file cabinets with wonderful old things in them. Mallory, of course, faces a lot of weather and other storage conditions that are not appropriate for the retention of old records in the long run, and you can see the amount of risk that those materials are at. The kinds of materials that we're talking about, shelves and shelves of staff directories, many of these dating from the 1870s through to the 1930s, scrapbooks, board minute books from those same decades, registers of children. In the old days, these were handwritten volumes. These are wonderful treasures. And for anyone doing any kind of research on the history of our city, amazing amounts of genealogical information, along with any of the other demographic data that tells so much of our city's historical story. Teacher contracts dating as far back as the 1890s are in the collection as well. We propose to take them from the settings you've seen here this evening and bring them to what we call the Indianapolis Special Collections Room. This is up on the 6th floor at Central Library, in addition to the room itself, which you see here, which includes a temperature-controlled storage area, well-lit and relatively spacious study areas for researchers, and needless to say, a good view when you need to take a break. We also have some additional storage in another section of the Central Library where these materials can be protected. Our work with materials like this would involve very special handling. There's a lot of what we would call red rot damage, binding failure, things like that. This naturally happens with materials that are this old. Once we're through with them and we take off our gloves, we would in fact be able to provide the public in the future with clean, organized, and cataloged resources. The very exciting piece of this that we're still everything I've told you about up till now, we feel we can manage with our current programs. We do have a proposal out in the community right now to obtain some additional funding so that we would be able to take the next step with these materials and digitize them. This would allow us to digitize an estimated 524,000 pages of ledgers, yearbooks, student newsletters, and scrapbooks. We then create open digital collections that are accessible to the world via our own digital platform, which is called Digital Indie. We also, through our participation in Indiana Memory and the Digital Public Library of America, are able to network these resources all across the whole country. We collaborate quite a bit with the Indiana Historical Society, the State Museum, and IUPUI in all of our digitization work. The access to the materials once digitization is complete would be full text, keyword, and there would be subject search capabilities. So the access would be a long, long way from what we have today. So we are offering to do this. We would appreciate it if you're interested in partnering with us. And we promise to work very closely with your staff to make sure that nothing is publicly displayed or even available digitally that would transgress any terms of student privacy. We're very aware of concerns like that. Most of this material is old enough that we don't think we have many issues, but we'll work very carefully with your staff to make sure that there are no concerns in that regard. Happy to be of service. Chris is good at what he does. Our digitization staff are top-notch. They are cranking out collections every single week. We just finished about 10 different arts organizations, and we'd love to start working with you. Any questions?
Commissioner O'Connor?
One, this is
Yes.
fantastic. Very pleased that you're doing this. As we looked at this at the meeting last Tuesday, the one question I had, as you know, the University of Indianapolis houses the mayoral archive.
Yes, they do. Very exciting.
I wonder if there is some sort of cooperative agreement or some arrangement where I'm certain there is overlap to be.
We're very familiar with their program, Commissioner, and that was done as part of the work by a company called History IT. They have a proprietary software package that they use to create their indexing and things. It is searchable, however, on the World Wide Web, and so we are able to do some crisscrossing with them. They no longer have the lab down there, but we're in pretty good contact with them. They served on our digitization kind of task force that we had a couple of years ago, so I think we're all trying to share language and work to the same standards.
That's great.
I think it'll be okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Odle?
And you're able to do this at no cost to IPS?
For the work to bring the material into the ISCR, no cost to IPS. There is a cost for the digitization, and we are currently seeking grant funding to digitize the records of the police department, the remaining records of the fire department that we haven't already done, the records of the parks department, and your records. And if we can get that grant, we're home free.
And what's
But
the,
we know you don't have money to pay for this.
what's
We
the
get it.
scale to do something of this magnitude to digitize it?
For all of the items that I just mentioned to you, we're looking at a 5-year project that is over $3 million.
Good luck. Cheering for you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bentley?
I think this is a wonderful thing, because I know that I've had people communicate with me from the state archives, in the past about concerns about what's happening with,
Right.
records, particularly at the school level, and so I know this is focused primarily on the records kept at this building, at Mallory, and at Forest Manor, but I didn't know if there could be future conversations about concluding records that might be housed at individual schools, because I know that some of our older schools have some records, I think, that are going back pretty far.
You're quite right, Commissioner Bentley. There's a wealth of information still out in many of the schools. Schools that are still open and operating, many of them have treasure rooms. And we have a great interest in tapping into that trove of material. Even the 3D options, whether 3D articles such as trophies and things like that, that we can do 3D photography of and then have that all be indexed and searchable. That would be a great journey to embark on, and that'll involve funding that we'll have to seek after we take care of these records that, quite honestly, are quite at risk right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for this.
Commissioner Cosby?
In the same vein as Commissioner Bentley's comment, I'm just wondering, you mentioned a cutoff date of 1930. And so my question is along the lines of bringing us into more recent years. And so is that a hard and fast limitation due to is there a reason for the 1930 date, or?
I think it was arbitrarily picked as just a good stopping point.
Could you move to the microphone, sorry, so everyone can hear you, thank you.
As we looked at the records, I think we just picked that as an arbitrary date, but we bopped around all the way up to 1960, 1970. We weren't sure on privacy issues for the students. That was our one of the main concerns, is I'm not sure how many of those records would fall further beyond that, but we feel safe up to 1930, and then it gets a little sketchy from there further up. So, but I am welcome and open to further dates. So,
Thank you for your partnership. This is really, really exciting.
Great.
Appreciate it.
We already do a lot of high school yearbooks, and in the high school yearbooks, we never put up available digitally the high schools from the last, 6 or 10 years, because we are concerned about student information, and we'll be sensitive and work with your staff on that. This could be the start of a lot of good work over a long time. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Needys and Mr. Marshall. We are really looking forward to this. Moving to item 7.3, we are excited tonight to also hear about the work of WFYI and the education team from Butler University that has created a documentary and corresponding curriculum guide around the history of Crispus Attucks. I'd like to welcome Dr. Susan Adams and Dr. Brooke Candle Cisco from Butler University.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Susan Adams, and I'm an assistant professor of middle secondary education at Butler University. I'm a former IPS student, a former IPS teacher, and the proud parent of 2 IPS graduates.
And I'm Brooke Candle Cisco, Associate Professor and Director of Graduate Programs at Butler University, and I'm a former ESL teacher and the proud parent of 2 current IPS students. We have been fortunate to be part of the team of educators developing the Crispus Attucks High School Curriculum Guide that will accompany the WFYI documentary called Attucks, the School That Opened a City by filmmaker Ted Green. IPS educators will be able to easily access the curriculum guide through the WFYI website at no cost. Sections of the curriculum guide will also be available on PBS Learning Media. The curriculum guide team was convened by WFYI and includes educators, teacher educators, and parents from IUPUI, Butler University, and IPS. This guide provides standards-based and interdisciplinary resources and provocations for engaging students critically in both the remarkably rich legacy of Crispus Attucks High School and the uncomfortable topics the film introduces. The curriculum guide is designed to inspire authentic student inquiry, to develop critical thinking skills, and to make significant connections to students' social identities. The guide is founded on the learning approach best described as historical inquiry, with underpinning values of social justice, an ethic of care, and a pursuit of equity in sociocultural relationships firmly embedded within anti-racist teaching commitments. To set the stage for sharing with you the curriculum guide, Ted Green and WFYI have generously allowed us to share this clip from the forthcoming documentary, which will premiere in August.
People realizing that education was important, and Attucks being the only game in town at that point, they understood what was at stake, and that every part of that school had to succeed in order for the race within the confines of Indianapolis to succeed. They knew how important it was. Everybody knew how important it was.
From the beginning, it was the teachers who stood Attucks proud and tall. The very first one set the tone. Son of a slave, John Morton Finney was a Buffalo soldier, serving in the Philippines and then in France during World War I. He would amass 12 advanced degrees, learn 7 languages, and serve as an attorney until age 106, before passing away at 108. He oversaw the language department at Attucks, where he taught for more than 30 years.
He was a small man in stature, very small, but he had this very strong historic presence. It's almost like he carried the whole history of black people in his little body to and from the classroom, and he walked down the hall and everybody knew Mr. Morton Finney was passing by. God was passing by.
And having just met him, and he told me that I was the second president that he's met. The first was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but having met him, I know this is a risk to praise him, but I have to disagree with him. I hope you'll join me in commending a man who may be America's most seasoned scholar, John Morton Finney. Would you stand up, please, Mr. Morton Finney?
Likewise, Morton Finney's early colleagues comprised a who's who of African American achievement. Mers Tate, the first black woman to earn a degree at Oxford and a PhD in international relations at Harvard. Fred Parker, who graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Amherst and later taught at Harvard. Clarence Harvey Mills, who earned a bachelor's at Dartmouth and a PhD at the University of Chicago. Dr. Joseph Carroll, Francis Stout, Letty Wycliffe, George White. The list went on. Many came from the South, where Jim Crow laws prevented them from being professors at state universities, and where the historically black colleges paid next to nothing. In Indianapolis, many moved into the only place they could afford, the YMCA.
I think they knew that they were involved in something special,
and they could make something special out of this circumstance that they were in. I think they knew that, and I think that incentivized them to be harder, to ask for more, and say, we're going to get these kids out, they're going to be something.
So it seemed right to share that clip in this building. That's a real treat to get to see, so thank you for indulging us. To get back to the guide that we're designing is neither a lesson plan nor a curriculum map. Instead, it is an interactive framework which includes links to relevant online resources we hope will inspire deep investigations into historically complex events, issues, and the people who produce them. It is not expected that most teachers will import this framework wholesale, but it is our hope that educators will consider pulling threads from various suggested categories to create a rich, creative tapestry of exploration and investigation unique to each classroom of learners. The intention is that this curriculum resource proves to be an enduring, truly useful contribution, moving beyond something on a classroom shelf. We anticipate it will serve as an interactive site of engagement in which educators can share new questions, creative artifacts, successful student learning experiences, and additional resources as they explore and experiment. To this end, we have designed the guide for use by students and teachers of all grades and all subject areas, encouraging its simultaneous and ongoing use across the disciplines. We also hope this level of engaged learning will spill over into our communities as students seek to understand the Crispus-Attucks High School era in light of current events, policies, and practices. As you may have read in today's Indy Star and Chalkbeat article, racial segregation is as relevant today as it was in the early 1900s. We understand that teachers are expected and rightly feel an obligation to teach to the Indiana standards and to follow existing curricular maps and guidelines. We believe the curriculum guide resources support innovative standards-based teaching that complements current IPS initiatives, such as the one that the pilot schools are involved in the Racial Equity Institute training. We're currently developing professional development sessions in conjunction with IPS Social Studies coach Eric Hagee to support teachers of all levels to use the curriculum guide to develop authentic units of historical inquiry. Additionally, the Indiana Historical Society and the Children's Museum of Indianapolis will offer teacher professional development opportunities in order to support the use of the guide. So in summary, on behalf of the entire curriculum guide development team, we are here today to request 2 action items from the board. 1, your approval for IPS educators to use the curriculum guide, and 2, your express support for the educators to participate in forthcoming professional development sessions. And we thank you in advance for consideration of our request. We'd be happy to try to answer questions if you have them.
Thank you, Dr. Adams, and, oh, I'm so sorry.
Just one simple
Didn't see
question.
you over there.
How long is the documentary?
It's not finished yet.
Oh,
but
so it's up in August? It's not finished?
It's going to
this
premiere
year?
in August. It will be done on time. We've been assured. It's about 2 hours,
Great.
Maybe a little bit longer than that. We've seen a great deal of it, and you're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're very excited about this, and we look forward to working with you. Sorry. It's like, yes, Commissioner Cosby.
I'm wondering if this this is grade specific, and if so, what Indiana state standards are addressed, and what grade level do you feel this would be utilized?
We've designed the curriculum guide so that it can be used across disciplines and across grade levels.
Okay.
At the elementary level, it's more likely that we would encourage teachers to pull out certain sections of the documentary, whereas with older students, perhaps the majority of the documentary could be viewed. That's really a part of the professional development sessions, is to help teachers choose the parts of the documentary that best fit with the Indiana standards that they need to teach across the disciplines.
And so
we have broken it down by developmental level. So there's an elementary section and a secondary section, and we've gone grade by grade in the elementary portion and connected across each of the standards of the core content areas, as well as integrated some fine arts and visual arts standards, just to show this is how it may be addressed, but it's not a prescription. It just is a way of helping teachers understand, if we're doing this in social studies, it also connects in this way through math, in this way through science, in this way through art.
And I haven't seen the documentary, but it looks like the themes that are present are important to be taught throughout the curriculum. So I appreciate the efforts in making it universal in application. And I hope that we can get this in as many classrooms as possible. This is such an important part of Indianapolis history. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Commissioner Bentley.
So is the documentary going to premiere on WFYI in August? Is that the plan, or how is that?
What we know so far is there is a premiere in late August at the Madam Walker Theater, and then it will show on WFYI later in the fall. I'm not sure if that date has been determined yet. I want to say approximately, what did you say? August 18th is the premiere.
It's the Madam Walker premiere.
Right. I think that it'll show on PBS later in the fall, September, October.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
There's some connection with the Heartland Film Festival, and so that's going to make the television premiere get pushed back, we think, from what we understand. Crispus Attucks, the alumni have requested their own special screening at the school, and there is a plan for the Crispus Attucks students to see the documentary in their own auditorium, which gives me chills just to think about. So there is a plan for that to happen there. There'll be many, many opportunities, and I think eventually this is going to be available for streaming, but not for a while yet.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thanks for your work on this. I think it's very
glad to do it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Marianne?
Yes.
I know that premiere on the 18th is sold out, but they're going to show it again on the 19th, and there still are tickets. You can see it at the Walker Building on the 19th. And I think then in September is when the alumni, or October, when the alumni are going to do theirs.
Thank you. I believe we are now ready to turn the agenda over to Dr. Farabee.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Madam President. Again, would like to thank the team from Butler University for sharing the great news on the Crispus Attucks documentary, and also the curriculum that we look forward to exposing our students to across the district. Also, again, want to express gratitude to the Indianapolis Public Library for their assistance in ensuring that we protect the history of IPS. We have 4 reports this evening as relates to Section 8 and Superintendent reports. The first item is an update on IRE performance. Dr. LeGrand will lead the discussion and provide the update.
Good evening, Commissioners. This evening, I want to provide a brief overview on IRE 3. We'll share the trend data that we've seen over the past few years, discuss the preliminary data for this school year, as well as the highlights from this school year, and share with you our literacy strategies overall. So on this slide, we just share with you the trend data since 2011 and 12. You will see that we saw a large increase in 2012-13, and 2013-14 a dip, and in 2014 we went back up again. We are trending high this year as well. For IRE 3, just want to remind everyone, students receive 3 opportunities to actually pass the test. It's supposed to assess for kids that they're reading on the 3rd grade level. The first opportunity for 3rd graders is in March, where the test is given. The second opportunity is around the last week of school, and then the third opportunity is in the summertime. So students receive 3 chances to pass the assessment. The trend data that you see is the end of all 3 assessments for those years. Right now, we're in the place where the students this week actually finished their second opportunity, and I'll share some of that information with you. So for this year, the preliminary results, what you see on the screen, I wanted to share with you apples to apples conversations. So this is after the second test, which was given the last week of school. And so you'll see after the second test in 14-15, where we were as a district, 66.9, and then this year where we were after the second test, is 72.5, and that's when I said we're trending higher this year. After the second test last year, we had a total of 8 in the magnet schools, 80.8% passing. This year, we've had 93.2% passing. In our transformation zone schools, in 14-15, after the second test, 68.4% passing the test. And then for this year, 15-16, 63.5% passing. In our East Learning community, for after the second test last year, 58.3% passed, and this year, 73%. And the same passing percentage this year for our West Learning community, where they were 67.3. So the note at the bottom is that the final results for the students who are taking the test this week, the third and final opportunity, we get those results, and then hopefully the official results from DOE in August. This is where we were after the second administration last year and the second administration this year. And then the preliminary highlights, we say preliminary because it's us looking at the data and not published by the state of Indiana officially yet. So thus far, we have 2 schools with 100% passing rate after the second administration. So Merle Seidner, 100% of their third graders passed, as well as the third graders at Francis W. Parker Montessori School. So every single third grader thus far in those 2 schools have passed IRE 3. We wanted to list for you the greatest gains in our schools, and so again, we're showing you apples to apples comparisons. So when we say Flora Torrance went from 40.8% to 83.3%, we mean after the second administration. So last year, this time, they had 40.8% passing after the second test, and this year, this time, 83.3%. And so you'll see the schools that we've noted to have the highest gains thus far. The next school being Francis W. Parker. Of course, this time last year, there were 63.3, and then we just celebrated that 100% of them passed this time. Joyce Kilmer was 31% to 56%. Meredith Nicholson was 53.3 to 76.8. Brookside, 33.7 to 56.6. Frederick Douglass, our super school, 66% to 88.4. Lou Wallace, 55% to 76.7. And Phelan Leadership Academy at Francis Scott Key, this time last year was 29.8, and then this year it's 61.2% passing. For our literacy strategies, we talked a little bit about these previously during the year. Our students traditionally do much better if our kids attend preschool. We track their success rate, and so we consider that a strong literacy strategy when we compare students who've attended IPS preschool to how well they succeed on literacy tests. This year, we also launched into the deep of guided reading, and that's an opportunity for students to receive reading instruction on their reading level. And so guided reading was a big push for us in the district, and we think it supported our efforts, and we've seen gains with that. Formative assessments, you might hear about DIBELS or TRC, those assessments being given to students. It's along the year. We give a test at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year to see where students are reading on level, what level they're reading on, and then we provide support and remediation in between those assessments. So those formative assessments really inform the instruction of our teachers around literacy, and we're able to remediate and accelerate their growth. That's my brief update. I welcome any questions about our IRE 3 or literacy in general.
Commissioner Odle?
Yeah, on the strategies, like we have Read Up and Oasis, are those guided reading?
They are used as a part of our remediation programs, and so the Read Up strategies and the Oasis tutoring, those teachers receive the current state of success for the students, and so they typically come in after the beginning of year assessments or the middle of year assessments. We give them the information about where Wanda is right now on literacy, and then those retired teachers jump in and help them to accelerate their learning.
I know we don't have enough Read Up or Oasis volunteers for every third grader, I don't believe, but
I don't think so.
Do we have them focused on those schools that need the most help?
Yes, and very focused on the actual students that need the most help. Most of our tutoring programs, and Read Up specifically, when we do the formative assessments that I mentioned, the scores are ranked with red, yellow, and green, and the programs dive in and support the yellow students as well as the red students and provide focus intervention for those kids.
And I know it might be hard to sort of speculate over time, but like where we had the drop from 2012-13 to 2013-14, is any comment you can make or attribute to that?
Yes. What I can say is that when we noticed the drop in 13-14, and that was actually my first year, I had conversations with principals about that. With the principals that were there for 12-13 that remained for 13-14, we had specific conversations. What happened? What did you do differently? What was going on differently in the building? And most principals couldn't state anything that was different that year. They could, and we did notice that the state of Indiana as a whole grew, but there wasn't a conversation about it being a different test or it was graded any differently. The state as a whole did grow that year, But when talking to the principals, they couldn't cite anything that they did differently that year in comparison to the next year. There weren't any new literacy strategies that year either for us.
Commissioner Cosby?
Dr. LeGrand, could you also speak to the transformation zone is the one area that we saw a slight decrease, and I just would like to hear your thoughts around what might be the cause of that decrease.
For the transformation zone, there has been some change in leadership in those buildings, but not in every building. But some principals were new or are new to the buildings that they were working in. What they've seen happen is that they have provided a great deal of support to the schools. The principals will, I think, readily assess or share with you that they had to provide additional support. And some of those schools, some of the problems existed with teachers not being in place. Some of them did have teacher vacancies, but many of them were able to create Plan B if they didn't have a teacher in the classroom. And that's why we're supporting them with having early hiring fairs to make sure that there's a teacher in every single building to make sure we're fully staffed. But the principals as well are the ones for those schools working to remedy what might have occurred or didn't occur after the second test to make sure it occurs in the summertime. But I believe the principals take ownership on wanting to provide more in-depth support of their students.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. LeGrand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is 8.02, the update on the planning and implementation of student-based allocations for schools. Weston Young will lead the discussion and provide the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight, I'll be reviewing the student-based allocation update. First slide reminds us that it's a strategic plan aligned initiative for greater student outcomes. So we are talking about the development of a weighted student formula that focuses on greater equitable distribution of our resources. You'll note the two goals that represent that in the strategic plan. Goals tonight are to update you on the weights and the policies that are currently before the SBA design team, discuss what characteristics are getting weighted, and also discuss what the policies are that govern this formula. Remind you how weights are being chosen. So the weights are being chosen that are relevant, measurable, independent, significant, and diversified. These weights are to equitably distribute the resources based on student need. These weights have been informed by stakeholder groups, many CLT conversations that we've had, our SBA working group. We've looked at performance data, all trying to hit the weights associated with these 5 attributes. The weights currently being considered are a little different than what we had noted back in May during the work session that we updated you first time on these weight considerations. So weights currently being considered are grades K2, grade 7, grade 9, and a poverty index. Again, these weight considerations based upon much stakeholder feedback. We've held principal and instruction focus groups to get feedback on this. 14 were held over the course of May and June. We've had a design team, about 25 central service and principal teams weigh in on this. We've also had ERS and our teams looking at the I-STEP performance results and noting the gaps most heavily seen in grades 3, 7, and 8. We've also noted that students in poverty are scoring on average 15% lower than what their non-poverty peers are on these tests. As well, again, it's an alignment of the strategic plan with a focus on the challenges of the middle grades and also the emphasis on the transition into high school. As we continue on, the analysis and the scenarios that have been modeled out based on these weights currently is off of 14-15 financial and non-financial data. This 14-15 data will be refreshed and updated as today is the fiscal year close, so our staff is working hard on the financial piece, but also, as you see and hear in our reading, the non-financial data being test scores and the demographics of our schools have changed as well. So as we refresh that information, our teams will be continuing to model those scenarios. We continue to be advised and by our team from ERS about the funding constraints that are in the Indianapolis context that haven't been seen in any other urban district in the nation that they've counseled. And this is mainly because of the statewide funding decisions and processes. Being that it's a constrained funding source, the weights need to be fewer so that it does not dilute the amount of dollars that are funding all the needs of all students. Next is a list of the SBA policies that will need to be in place to govern the administration of the formula. So the first is an average actual salary, basically how much a salary, or how the salary is reducing the budget associated with a school. The transition policy based on how I hold harmless from the base year, which is this upcoming 16-17 year, into the first year of implementation being 17-18, and also fall adjustments if enrollment projections are actually less or more than what was projected when the budget was put together. And lastly, a budget carryover and buyback policy, which we are advising would be a year 2 consideration as we continue to iterate on an annual basis and phase this in. First recommendation is to utilize average salary. Average salary, again, focuses on the quality of the educator and allows the principal not to worry about the cost. It also doesn't penalize the schools that currently have the higher, the more experienced staff. It also aligns with other districts who have rolled out SBA in their own districts. Currently, no other district has been able to use actual salary for the entire rollout. And at this time, compensation has not currently been linked tightly to effectiveness and contribution. The next is the transition and hold harmless policy, which is a policy which creates a temporary cap on the amount per pupil that would be gained or lost by a school community. This is important because if a school loses significant dollars, there's a need for a strategic shift in how they address their school design plan. Conversely, if a school is getting a windfall and is gaining dollars in their budget, there's also a need to have a longer-term strategic, thoughtful process about how to utilize those dollars best. Currently, we're looking at capping both the losses and the gains and continuing to model that to see the impact and the consequences. So that's a draft policy at this time. The fall adjustments, again, is when the district would adjust the dollar during the year if the actual enrollment figures were more or less than what was projected. So our current recommendation would be to continue with the current policy that's in place, where we have one adjustment which happens in the mid to late August timeframe here at IPS. This minimizes teacher movement and also creates a more stable environment for our teachers and students. Finally, next steps are to continue to model the scenarios as we get refreshed data through the 16-17 budget by school and also the non-financial data related to those schools. And we'll continue to update the board as we move along in the process. At this time, have any questions?
Sure, Odell.
I just have one question, Wes. When you look at sort of limiting the gains or losses that you could have in your funding, it would, sort of to minimize. It seems that you would have to do that on the adjustment side too. It probably would be a rare occasion that, the student population that you anticipate and staff for would be 30% less or something like that. You probably would want to go in and adjust it. But if it was just, 2 or 3 percentage points, you probably wouldn't. You know what I mean?
I believe that would be the case. There'd be a threshold where there's adjustments that would need to be, the actual movement of a teacher or of a position or of a resource would be dictated upon a threshold. But ultimately, those dollars, based upon the enrollment, are run through the formula in a transparent format, and the dollars may go up $10,000. Sometimes they may go up $100,000. Whether that's 30% or 3%, it's an actual dollar. So we're giving those dollars to the schools to make those decisions, who would then work with HR and the AIOs for the best resource or the best position staff person. Either way, there might be a change based upon what the principal is given the ability to make on with those dollars.
Mr. Bentley.
I know this is focused on the student-based budgeting side of things, but are we in a at what point will we be able to see spending by school as well, and sort of be able to make those comparisons on the spending side? I ask about that because, one of the things, I think the challenges that we have is when the administration is involved in negotiating contracts, for example, with some of our innovation schools, is knowing how much we're actually spending on like schools. And so I didn't know if part of the process in getting this set up will give us better data on that other side too, as far as spending by school.
The work that is being done in the SBA development process does inform our team and the district more on what the costs are per school, and based on those needs, are we funding those adequately or as best we can? Is it funded by a squeaky wheel, or is it funded because this is the need that is there? It's not the principal that has the most emails into somebody. The opportunity for us to see by cost center, by school, 15-16 is finalizing today. We'll be looking at the 16-17 budget that's been informed by the actual data from 15-16. It'll be informed by the adjustments in the grade configurations that have been discussed. It also takes into account the innovation schools that have been in place for 15-16. It also takes into account the new innovation schools that are 16-17. The work that ERS has been doing is very, very key to this, because of the way that they, with their data analytics team, is able to take all these scenarios and make sense of all these changes in a very short amount of time. So it's up to us to have clean data, and then when we give that data to them, allow them and continue to inform and collaborate with that data, not just to take, here's the report. It's a lot of back and forth, but we've been really greatly impacted by the work that they do to look at costs of the school. 14-15, we'll be looking at 15-16, we'll look at 16-17 to project what should the funding be for 17-18. We're talking about 2 school years from now. So all through the process, we've had a lot of great input from ERS to do that data analytics.
Well, I mean, at some point, will we be able to get some of that data by school? Have we gotten that? I don't think so. I mean, we've gotten some general data, but I didn't know if we would get it by school.
I can work with Dr. Farabee to see what the amount of data we would want to convey as the scenarios are continually being modeling.
Yeah.
As new initiatives come on board and it's a lot of trade-offs. So are we doing this or this? And we're able to model that. Whether we actually have a final number, again, we've been working off of 14-15, and what we've realized as a team is 14-15 had no Arlington. It had Gambled, Shortridge at Gambled. It had law and policy. The data for 14-15 is limited, but I believe directionally speaking, it's focusing us in the right direction. As we get into the next 2-3 months, we have some final data. We're finalizing budget for 16-17. That's the data that will be refining that formula. Again, not just the data for the finances, but it's also the non-financial data. It's demographic of poverty and these grades and the performance gaps. And we need some time also to evaluate that as well, to inform the dollars that will flow to those needs.
Okay,
So.
yeah, I can see that.
And once we get further into the allocation process, I believe this gives us a better opportunity to provide with more precision actually how schools are spending their dollars with this new particular model. In the past, we've provided general information by category in terms of, a building is spending X number of dollars or the district spending X number of dollars on operations or administration or curriculum and teaching or learning. But as we shift to the student-based allocation model, the goal would be to provide even more detailed information as we can.
Thank you.
Mr. Young, I had I'm sorry. Commissioner Cosby, go ahead.
Just a couple quick questions. First, is this is for, my understanding, this is for schools that are autonomous status or innovation status only, is that correct?
So student-based allocation would be rolled out to all schools that are IPS and a couple of the innovation schools that were recently agreed upon in this last cohort of innovation schools. So all schools of IPS that are non-innovation, and then the current innovation schools that would be subject to this for 17-18 are Cold Spring and George Fisher.
Okay.
Because it's stated in their agreement.
Can you give us like 2 sentences on how this is different from what we've done in the past, just so everyone kind of understands the background?
Yeah, so the process of allocating, which we're in the process of doing right now for 16-17 school year, has been based more on student-teacher ratios and saying this is the population and this is the student population and number of teachers that a ratio would align with, and then calculating the dollars that is associated with that. In this case, we're saying, here are the dollars. Decide on what the teachers are and the resources that are needed to meet these student needs.
Okay, thank you. And then last question, and you may not be here yet, but I'm curious to know how the student-based allocation interfaces with the additional allotments that special education students receive.
In SPED and Title, these are locked resources at this time, so we have unlocked and locked.
Okay.
Unlocked are the resources or the dollars that flow through the formula. The locked resources are those that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have autonomy to make decisions at the school level on those, but they're at this time our teams are locking them and not putting them in the formula. Okay. Lock means they're not going through the formula, but they still have or may have discretionary ability to make some decisions or all decisions at the school level.
Okay, thank you.
I would also add it's important, specifically with special education, that oftentimes the individual education plans of students with disabilities drives how resources are allocated to schools to serve students with disabilities. And that varies from year to year based on those individualized education plans and also the needs of the population.
Commissioner O'Connor?
It's 2 quick questions. Wes, you indicated that ERS had said that as they were looking at this, that IPS has more financial, I think, restrictions was the phrase you used, than in other urban school systems. Is that primarily tax caps or is it other?
It's mainly general fund. So the general fund, which makes up about half of the budget of IPS, funds almost 90%. 90% of that is teachers, and those dollars that come from the state. And this is not just IPS, this is statewide. Districts are hurting on the education level, the funding level that the state is funding school districts with. So tax dollars not related to property taxes are what we're really focused in here on. We're talking about general fund coming from the state, not property tax.
The second thing is on slide 9, you talk about the cap on the top and the cap on the bottom. Any sense of what % cap on either the top or the bottom you're looking at?
Not in particular a specific percentage. I'll just do a caveat. A lot of the modeling currently has been going off of a 10% one way or the other. Okay, so if we, I wouldn't say on average, districts across the nation who roll this out use 10%, but that's what we're modeling with at this point. And there's scenarios where you have a higher loss cap than a gain cap, or vice versa. Depending on the decision there, really drives some decisions about reserves. Okay, so there's a lot of conversations about, well, what reserves do we need to have in place that if the enrollment projections are off and we have the cap one way or the other, we need to fund that through reserve.
Right.
That's where we're trying to, with funding constraints, we're trying to understand what type of aggressive position we could take with some of those transition hold harmless policies.
Thank you.
Mr. Young, yes, Commissioner O'Connor kind of stole my question on the state, on the constraints. To the extent that we can kind of capture that relative to other states from the bird's eye view of ERS, we'd definitely like to see that information in terms of our advocacy. So if you can help with that. And then also, just again, the issue I raise every time in terms of, I understand very much why we need to, for rollout and for the foreseeable future, work with average salaries, but really would like to see the planning on how we ultimately transition to actual down the road in this work. So just to, again, reiterate that. Thanks.
I'll to that point on the actual salaries. So we have we've been interfacing with Denver, and in Denver, they have 2/3 of their schools using average, 1/3 of them using actual. They have an innovation school-like system there. In their innovation status of schools, the district still retains control of positions, but there is an actual average that they opt in to use actual. In talking with budget staff there, the team noted at Denver that they're still evaluating the impact, again, dollars and cents, but student outcomes, teacher retention. Is that having impact? Whether it's actual or average, right now there's somewhat in the evaluation stage. They can't say one way or the other. It's having an impact. So the dollars and cents isn't necessarily the driver. It's still getting back to the quality of the teacher in the classroom and in that school design plan, regardless of average actual. But yes, because of comments that have been made at previous board meetings, we're pursuing and engaging with our teammates, colleagues in other states and other districts that are rolling this out or have 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience. And Denver is leading the charge on trying the hybrid approach. And at this point, there's not been a rollout of SBA with actual, and we feel administratively at this time, first year, to definitely be looking at that as the approach.
Thank you. Quick comment.
Commissioner Bentley.
I want to respectfully disagree with my colleague. I'm not there yet on actuals. I'm glad we're going for averages. I mean, I just need to know a lot more of what that impact would be. Because I don't want to create a perverse incentive where principals, if all things equal, quality-wise, are having to make decisions based on how much a person costs them. And I think it's particularly problematic with some of our schools that have specialized training that teachers have to go through. And so once a school gets a person that's good, they want to hold on to them. So you ultimately end up with a pretty senior staff. And I don't think that schools, I'm concerned about schools having to make those kinds of personnel decisions and weighing how much a person costs. I just have serious concerns about that.
I'd say the feedback also from Denver is the amount of system implementation and staffing that they've had to invest in to administer 2 types of programs. Okay, so that's also a consideration, is the administration and the support. What the finance team does and the innovation team does to support those decision-making processes has to also be considered. So, but we take the comments. Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Madam President, if we could, we have two other quick items that are in other sections that involve external partners or community members that we'd like to recognize. And so I'd ask if we could lift up item 10.03 and item 9.04 prior to having our innovation partners presentation.
Please.
So in section 9, we have item 9.04, which is a request to modify our dress code in relations to board policy 5511. Again, following much advocacy from the Girl Scout Troop 1610 from School 84, there was significant and compelling arguments around ensuring that there was more freedom and creativity for our young ladies as it relates to tights. And so again, I want to recognize Girl Scout Troop 1610, and they're here tonight. If you please stand and be recognized. Thank you, young ladies. Thank you for being a voice for all of the females across the district and ensuring that we've addressed tights, and we look forward to seeing your creativity with tights for the 16-17 school year.
Move approval.
Excuse me. The administration has recommended that we take action on this immediately to allow sufficient time to communicate the changes to students, parents, and staff. Do I have a motion to waive the 30-day waiting period?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 7713, approving the changes to the dress code policy as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
I have
Commissioner Bentley?
I just want to applaud these young women and their leader too. I was a Girl Scout leader. I'm a lifetime Girl Scout member. And just to see this kind of civic engagement, it does my heart good. And I just want to applaud all of you. I think you have an amazing leader that got you engaged in this process. But I think you guys were the ones that felt passionate enough to want to make a difference. And you have made a difference. And I think you should be very, very, very proud of yourselves. And so I just congratulations, and we look forward to seeing those tights this fall.
All in favor?
Aye.
A point of order,
Oh, I'm
this
so sorry.
policy change, should it be a
Oh, okay. I'm very sorry.
roll call vote?
Yes, roll call vote, please. Commissioner Eccles?
Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
Commissioner Bentley,
Yes.
Commissioner Cosby,
Yes.
Commissioner Eccles,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Odle,
Yes.
and President Sullivan.
Yes. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you again. The other item is,
Can I just, if I don't know if they see it or not, but if you guys go and look, Resolution 7713 actually has your troop number in there. So it's like really Girl Scout Troop 1610, like all of that. So if you haven't, go look at it. It's pretty awesome that, oh, he said he's going to send it to you. So, you know, shout out to you guys. I'm very proud. Troop 391, sorry, that's my troop.
thank you again. Again, thank you to the Girl Scouts organization as well. The next item is item 10.03. Just want to raise to attention of commissioners and recognize special guests. Item 10.03 is a memorandum of agreement with the Urban Initiative to expand high-five rallies and motivational speakers and assemblies across the district. I want to recognize Reverend Dr. Preston Adams, who has been an advocate for this effort and ensuring that our students are welcomed in a positive way on our campuses in the morning. And I want to again recognize him and his team for their leadership and all the community members who have been participating in the high five rallies across the district. and we look forward to having you in our schools for the 16-17 school year.
Thank you so much. I know how good it makes me feel when I see photos on my Twitter feed of the high fives happening, so I can only imagine how great it makes our kids feel. Thank you so much.
Are we taking action on this now, or?
Yes, we will need to take action on this item. It's also important to note that this will be, again, an IPS exclusive initiative for the 16-17 school year. And we're starting now by asking all of our community members to get engaged with us in ensuring that we have a high five rally at all of our schools for the start of school to show support to our young people on the first day of school of August 1st.
Sorry about that. Do I have a motion to approve the partnership as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Again, thank you, Reverend Preston Adams and your team for your support for IPS. Now we'll move back to the superintendent reports to item 8.03. We have several of our innovation partners here to provide an end-of-year reports. It's important to note that as part of our innovation school agreements, we have our partners provide a mid-year and end-of-year report to the administration and board of school commissioners. Tonight we have a presentation from Enlace Academy, KIPP Innovation, and KIPP Indianapolis, and we also have Phelan Leadership Academy at Francis Scott Key. We'll begin with the leadership team from Enlace Academy. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Dr. Farabee. Good afternoon, commissioners and all my IPS cousins. It's very exciting to be here, not only to celebrate the third year of existence for Enlace, but the third year we're in partnership with IPS as a district. We think that there's been a lot of good things, a lot of good progress that we've made. As most of you know, the vast majority of the students that attend Enlace speak a language other than English at home. And we see this as an absolute strength of the school, and we value their bilingualism as we build this culture that embraces culture. Unfortunately, state tests don't share our enthusiasm, so we have a lot of work to do each year to catch our students up, make sure that they're ready. Depending on what data you look at, it'll take anywhere between 4 to 10 years for an English language learner to gain the academic English it takes to be successful on state testing. So right now, finishing our third year, we're really at a tipping point of seeing what kind of difference we're making, because we're right there within striking distance of where we're expecting our students to start showing some real progress, given that our goal is they'll grow a year and a half each year that they're with us. So the first data point that we really like to look at, and I apologize I didn't make the presentation here, but when we talk about WIDA, which is the program that we use here in Indiana to measure the number of English language learners that you have in a school and then their progress as well, we're very proud to say that our students on average have grown over one level. They've progressed over one level in the last WIDA cycle. It's kind of an odd cycle. It's winter to winter. But we're very happy to show that our students are growing at a very good rate and showing that they're on pace to be able to catch up like we hope. We've moved actually from a significant portion of our students being considered ELL to only 45% now. I say only 45%, that's still relatively high for a school, but it is considerably lower than where we started, and it's 10% lower than we were last year. So we're very proud of that progress that we've made with WIDA. I also want to thank Dr. LeGrand for her presentation on iRead. So you guys, it's right on the forefront of your brains, and we're also very happy that we had an 83% passing rate after our second testing cycle that we just completed. So we feel like we've made a lot of good progress there. And that data is supported by our online programs as well. We use Lexia Core 5 as our literacy online program, our reading program. And what I'm really excited about and what the data is showing us is we had a significant number of students, 79% at the beginning of the year on the diagnostic, that were still testing one or more grade levels behind. Some of that's probably the summer slide, Some of that is the fact that we were still backfilling up till this year. Now, moving forward, we won't be doing that as much anymore because we have full classes. But at any rate, it was still 79% of our school. And by the end of this year, we'd shrunk that down to 24% of the school. And what's even more impressive for me is the fact that 35% of the students are now actually working above grade level, which means that we had kids who were below that moved above in this year. So we're very excited about that. We see similar gains in math. We use a different program for math. We use MobiMax, and we're actually transitioning to a different one next year called ST Math, which I wanted to use in year one, but it was a little too expensive for us. So similar gains. What is most of note to us actually in math is that we didn't progress very quickly in the first few months, and then we changed the way we tracked the data and invested the students in it. And as you see, from November on, we started growing fairly significantly afterwards. So we were able to be nimble, to use that data to make decisions, and it affected the kids. It made a big impact. There's a direct correlation between how long they're on the program and how well they're doing, which seems fairly obvious. But what we're really excited about is even our kindergarten, who had the fewest minutes, we're still showing over a year's worth of growth on the program. We started a soccer team. We were officially in the conference, and there were games where you would have thought you were at an Indy 11 game. We either won by 10 or lost by 10. There wasn't really much in between, but we were really excited to have a team. And what we were also really excited about was the environment of the families. We had families that were showing up who didn't have students playing, but just wanted to really support the Enlace environment. So we were really excited about that. We have a school policy that we don't kick kids out. So we know that we have to do a lot of things to make sure that we can really live up to that idea that all children can and will learn. And we didn't expel any students this year. And to really we took a two-pronged approach to this, aside from just the academic piece. We really look at how can we help reduce stress, because we have a lot of students with mental, emotional issues in their lives. And so we did a couple different things to help kind of, one, relieve anxiety. So we had the yoga. All the students participated in yoga. All the students participated in peace circles with the Peace Learning Center. And that helped with the stress reduction. And then we also took a physical approach to it, looking particularly at vestibular development and its connection to academic success. And so implementing Minds in Motion and a growing sports program has helped us with that as well. And so, again, it's just that commitment to the whole child. Fostering character is a core value of our school, and we are so excited that our students, 96% of them qualify for free and reduced price lunch. But what's exciting is that they don't see themselves as victims of their circumstance, but rather change agents who look for ways to affect their communities. So in the school community, you see kids doing what we call acts of kindness to really make the school community a better place. Locally, we had our fourth graders adopted an animal shelter, and we're helping with supplies and money that they donated to the animal shelter. And really excitingly, well, it's not exciting that there was an earthquake in Central America, but when our students found out about it, they were moved to help. And so they created a plan where they were selling concessions at the soccer games and other sports events in order to raise money for disaster relief for people who were suffering in Central America. So taking that approach of really becoming a group of people who can affect their community and make it a better place. And for me, that's a big part, because we always say who they are is as important as what they know. So we have a couple new things that we're doing for next year. We're actually having an early dismissal day because as we continue to grow as a staff, we found that more and more PD has a greater effect on how our teachers are effectively teaching the students. So one day a week we're planning on releasing early. We'll still have more hours than we're required to each year for the school year, but it'll give our teachers an extra hour each week to plan together, to work together, and to really make sure they're honing their craft. We're asking our parents, even though we had wonderful involvement, 80% of our parents attended at least 2 family events this year, but we're actually asking them to contribute 10 service hours as a family for the upcoming year, just to make sure they're constantly having a voice in our community. And then we're very excited about our expanding community. And this leads kind of to my final slide. We love to end meetings at Enlace with shout outs. And so just shouting out the IPS leadership team. Dr. Farabee had a vision to put a pre-K into the school, and we got that going this year. It made a huge impact. Those kiddos actually learned quite a bit. The preschool teacher came to me and said they all know their letters and their numbers by the end of preschool, and she was really excited about it, given that they only had a few months together. And so that vision to impact the West Side community, continue to make it stronger, starting with the top and then everybody that we've had a chance to work with. And that, again, includes the newcomer school that we're happy to be co-located with next year. We've been working very diligently with Tammy and Jessica to make sure that we're gonna have that ready to go, and that we will be a school community, not two different schools living in the same building. So for any of you who were there to see us working with Gambled Prep when they were still in the building, we're hoping to have a very, very similar experience and relationship. And I also want to make sure that I recognize a group of individuals who work for IPS. The painting crew at IPS is some of the most amazing people that you guys have in your employment. They are punctual, they are efficient, they take such pride in their work, they do a phenomenal job. And I've had many, many staff members comment to me that not only was it not a hindrance to have them working in the building, but they were actually a pleasure to have in the building. They were so courteous, so kind. They were always with a smile on their face. And I don't know if you get a chance to hear a lot of success stories like that, but hopefully you do. And that group, I commend Scott and Paul for their work with the whole FMD community, but they have just been such a joy to work with, both at Enlace and with Kendesi as we prep that school to launch for the coming year. So I just wanted to say that I absolutely adore those guys, and I really hope that they're getting the recognition they deserve.
Thank you,
so at this time, I'm ready.
The many shout outs, sir. Thank you.
At this time, I'm ready for questions.
Commissioner O'Connor.
I have one question, maybe I should be embarrassed to ask. On the slide, teaching the whole child, you use the phrase vestibular development.
Yes.
Could you tell me what that means?
Yeah, so it's your inner ear development, has a lot of connections to things like focus, spatial awareness, your body's ability to control, your ability to calm your mind down and focus on what you're doing, and working in elementary school, your ability to not run into your classmates when you're in line, which amazingly is one of the largest sources of anxiety in the school building. So being able to put them through a program that really helps them, it's spinning and twisting and doing all kinds of things. They think they're having a lot of fun and playing, but it's actually creating vestibular development, which leads to better focus and better body control.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions? Commissioner Cosby.
So I'm intrigued by this 1 day per week that you're able to let kids go home early.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have in place to help parents to accommodate that change for next school year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps that we're releasing right around the same time that the public schools in our area are releasing. So it's not a completely foreign idea to them. But we also have our aftercare program set up to where the parents, if they need the help with the kids being there or being released early, they can accommodate those students during those times. And they've been at all the meetings in which we announced it to the parents. And we had absolutely no parents push back at all. They just rolled with it.
Mm-hmm. And then my next question was, I find it amazing that you are against expulsion, and I'm totally supportive of that. Mm-hmm. I was curious, though, about your suspension rates then, what do those look like?
Not high. We very rarely will do an out-of-school suspension. If we have to have in-school suspensions, we take the approach of natural consequences, and so that it permeates through our entire behavior management system. And so most of the issues that we have in our school are handled within the classroom. On the occasions that we need to have an extra layer of discipline. We will have in-school suspensions, but again, it's not very high. Part of that is we have amazing kids at the school, and they really buy into the character development that we're working on. And part of that is our teachers don't try to do a lot of rewards and extrinsic awards that will, over time, actually reverse the process.
Yeah.
And so instead of, I always say we teach kids, not dolphins. So instead of trying to use incentives that really become kind of meaningless over time, we spend more time. If we're going to give an incentive, it's time with the teacher, it's attention, it's love, it's being able to it's have something other than a new pencil.
Thank you.
Again, it's a philosophy that I just am very passionate about.
Commissioner Arnold?
Remind me how many students and what grades?
So we finished the year with just over 280 students in kindergarten to 5th grade, sorry. And next year we will launch our 6th grade. So we're starting our middle school, which terrifies me a little bit, having a middle school daughter myself. And we anticipate somewhere between 340 and 350.
And how far will you go all the way to 8th?
We'll go to 8th, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our presentation from KIP Indy, and glad to have Emily here present to provide the update.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. I will be following Kevin's lead with the shout-outs to the district. I do not have an official slide, but first just want to express my gratitude. I'm excited to be here with you tonight to share some of our successes from this year as well as some upcoming opportunities. And again, I'm just incredibly grateful for our partnership with the district. It's enabling us to do different things in our school, and just really appreciate the support from the commissioners and from the administration at the district. So when I was here in the winter, we talked a little bit about some of the structural changes we made, particularly to our literacy program this year. And I'm excited to come back and say the places where we leaned in and focused, we're getting results. I'm not going to stand here and say everything is perfect and we feel like we've blown everything out of the water, but I am really excited about the progress we've seen, particularly in our results with literacy, based on some of the new initiatives that we've had this year. And so if you all recall, we have 2 schools that are co-located in Coleman, a middle school and an elementary school that just started in 2014. Next year we'll be adding 100 second graders, which is incredibly exciting. And so the first piece of data that I wanted to share was about some of our middle school results. So we made some pretty significant changes to our literacy program at the middle school this year, implementing a new grade level curriculum for literacy, doubling down on the minutes that kids were in reading and writing classes, as well as implementing guided reading across the middle school, which is often a strategy you see in elementary schools, but less common in middle schools. Given that most of our kids are coming in several years below grade level, we knew we couldn't just implement a grade level curriculum that many of our kids wouldn't be able to access without also ensuring we had differentiated instruction across the day. What you see on the slide are our interim results. Another key priority area for us at the middle school this year were every 6-week interims, ensuring that we were holding our kids to the high level of Indiana academic standards, and ensuring that we were looking at that data on a much more frequent basis. And so what we saw were some pretty significant gains in terms of proficiency for our kids, particularly in literacy. On the slide, I've broken out by quartile level. Another thing, just for a piece of context that we've seen in our school historically, is we were often able to move our kids who were in the bottom 2 quartiles. We would see our students who were actually at or above grade level, which oftentimes was a smaller percentage of our student body, not moving or even stagnating or regressing. And what we saw this year was very consistent, strong improvement across all quartiles of student performance in literacy. So I'm really excited about what that means. I'm also excited for the opportunities in math. So clearly we did not see the proficiency increases in math. I mean, I would also point out in literacy, we're reassessing standards across the interims because of the spiraling that happens in ELA, less common in math. So frequently different standards that were being assessed across those interims, but really excited about some opportunities for applying similar ideas to math next year that we saw in literacy this year. At our elementary school, we use the STEP assessment, which is out of the University of Chicago. This is used frequently in early elementary grades and looks at milestones that you see for reading development in students. And so the line graph shows you the distribution of where our kids were performing. Typically, you see students when they're coming in at kindergarten, they should be at a pre-reading level. And you would like them to grow 3 levels every year. So exiting kindergarten at a level 3, which is where you see the big spike on the kindergarten line. So what that would mean is by first grade, you're seeing most of your students exit at a step 6. What we see oftentimes is our kids aren't even coming in at a level 0. They're not even able to access the pre-reading material. So our kids need to grow more than the 3 step levels every year. What we saw this year across the elementary school was that almost 80% of our kids met or exceeded the 3-level growth, which we are very excited about, but it's not enough because of where they're coming in. So the chart on the right, you can also see a big difference between our new first graders, which was a smaller cohort, but still about 25% of that class, and our returning first graders. So on average, our returning first graders are hitting that exit at a level 6 mark. Our new first graders, because of where they came in, are not yet there. We know we need to continue to accelerate that growth. As we think about next year, I mentioned this earlier, I think that there are some major opportunities for us in terms of ongoing math intervention, both at the elementary and middle school level. So we've adjusted our schedule at the middle school, similar to what we did with reading and adding the guided reading block, but to add some additional interventions for math. Math blocks will be extended 3 days a week. And we're also adding some additional math intervention, as well as intervention in science and humanities, so that all teachers have time to reassess and reteach skills outside of their regular classroom. The other piece from a learning environment perspective, at the middle school, next year we will be piloting restorative justice circles in our middle school, which we're really excited about. There was some discussion earlier about suspension and climate in schools. We want to keep our kids in school. We want to have a positive, productive learning environment. We are really excited about this initiative as we head into next year. This is being led by our assistant principals, so they'll be teaching and leading circles twice a week with all of the homerooms at the grade levels that they support. The other thing I'm excited about as we think about next year is the community council that we'll be launching. We are deeply, deeply committed to the Near East Side and the Martindale-Brightwood neighborhood and are very appreciative of the district for allowing us to be back in the 110 building. And as we've continued to work with our community partners, partner with IUPUI and others who have done this work in neighborhoods, we are excited to be launching a community council to continue to invest our neighborhood leaders, partners, and parents in the work that we're doing and ensure that they also have input, insight, and support into what's happening at the school. So excited about that new initiative as well. Some other successes from the partnership, and this builds a little bit off of the comments from Enlace. Incredibly thankful for the facility and the team. Also thankful for the continued improvements to our building. The district recently installed a security vestibule, which we were very thankful for, and our kids and families are very thankful for. I also am incredibly appreciative of the support from the district and the board for our Kaboom project. We will be building a playground on July 30th, if anyone wants to come out. And it's just been a really exciting experience for our community and for our kids. We were able to host a design day where our students and parents came out and got to select like the types of things they would want in their playground and how they like to play. And so we're really excited about what that means for our school community and for our families and kids specifically. And then we've been in conversations, and I really appreciate Alicia and Brent and many others at the district for continuing to talk to us and partner around other ways we can continue to access the excellent work that is happening at IPS. And so we're having conversations about special education as well as alternative education as those situations arise. A couple places where I think we can continue to improve, which I appreciate the ongoing collaboration, is around transportation and those consistency of services. And we're also really excited to continue to talk to the district about potential collaboration for high school. We know that K-12 is incredibly important for our kids, and we're seeing results for many of our students drop off once they enter high school. So we're excited to continue this conversation with the community and with the district, hopefully over the next several years. So thank you again for all of your support, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Cosby?
Hi. You mentioned restorative justice circles, which sounds awesome, and also possibility of alternative education. Can you talk a little bit about suspension rates, expulsion rates? What challenges are you facing with discipline?
Sure. Yeah, I would say our suspension rates are too high, right? And this is something that, we are very aware of and continuing to work with both from a staff training perspective as well as the circles to think about what are those intermediary interventions for kids. The partnership with the district was more if there were any really extreme circumstances where a student might be up for expulsion, but if there were an alternative program in the district that we might be able to think about placement offerings to have that conversation. But we have a meeting this week or next week, I think, so I can speak to that more after that. But when I think about those situations, it's, a handful that I could hold on one finger or one hand.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. The next presentation is for Phelan Leadership Academy, Francis Scott Key. We have Greg Wegeson, who's the assistant principal, who will provide the end-of-year report.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Greg Wegeson, and I need to bring this down. I'm a little bit shorter than everyone else, apparently. I'm the assistant principal for academics at the Phelan Leadership Academy at 103. And on behalf of Earl Phelan, our CEO, and Agnes Aliabois, our principal, I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in and give our brief overview of how things went last year. And before telling any story, especially about what we have accomplished and what we've been through this year, I need to give a bit of context. We've had many stakeholders in our building this year, many visitors who have come in and visited, and we've gotten tons of feedback, most of it positive. But one bit of feedback we got was we had some people come in, and as they were leaving, they looked at us and they said, well, this is just a normal school. And we sat and we thought about it. It's like, wow, we didn't quite know how to take that. But in all honesty, that was a compliment to us. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with the background at 103. Uh-oh. Hold on. I think we're missing a slide. But that's okay. I'll go ahead and just go on. 103 was a very tough place. Over the last 5 years or so, it's been an F school. 9.6% of their scholars passed I-STEP last year. Suspensions were very high, expulsions were very high. It was just a difficult place. And so coming into this year, we knew that we were going to have challenges. So the first week, the first month, as all this is going on, everything started coming into focus. And we found that the biggest challenge we were going to have was breaking that culture and making this place somewhere where our scholars wanted to come in and where they wanted to be. And so we had to break that. And so one of the biggest challenges we had was the school culture. We had trauma. We have obsessive trauma in our school with high mental health rates. 15% of our kids are homeless, and they're in foster care. And they have major academic deficits. Now, when I say academic deficits, we had, at the beginning of the year, 80% of our scholars were 1 grade or below. We also had 8 of our 6th graders who were at either 1st grade to 3rd grade levels. So that is a deficit that was going to be very difficult to overcome. We move on to our successes. We really focused on improving our school culture. We have our dean, who is now our assistant principal of school culture, who really focused on giving our teachers what they needed to go in and attack all of these deficiencies that we had. We had a 20% increase in scholar enrollment. Our suspensions and expulsions went down. We decreased by 69% in the area of fights, which I thought was huge. Our I-read results were high, and we had a 100% efficiency rate with retaining all of our effective and highly effective teachers. one here. Okay. Thrown off here. Moving on to next year, we are going to continue to really focus on our safety and our culture, as well as our rigorous academics. We are giving our teachers 2 weeks worth of professional development here, starting in a couple of weeks, where we will focus on the safety and the culture by doing things like the restorative justice, giving very specific, strategies for them to go into the classroom and implement. And then with the rigorous academics, we are bringing in resources such as a data coach and an instructional coach to come in and meet with our staff on a weekly basis on different instructional strategies based on data that our students need the most work in. So those are some of the areas that we really need to go in and focus on moving into next year. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Ms. Roletta Holmes, who is our dean, or now our principal, our assistant principal, who will have a few words to say.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Greg. As my colleague explained, we started off in a very rocky situation. And in the time that you live, in the era that we live, when data drives us the most, where passing rate makes people extremely happy, they hired a person like myself who loves culture and who enjoys the fact of seeing the smile on our scholars as well as our parents' faces. And so the reason that was done was because we know that we not only have to change and restore our school, but we also have to change and restore the parents and the community in which our school is housed. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a school like us to raise the community that was so deficient. Whenever we talk about trauma, I'm talking about a scholar who I talked to at 6 months old. His mother explained to me during his reentry meeting from, yes, being suspended in kindergarten because he hit his teacher, that he was shot by a bullet. It grazed his head and left damage. We have scholars like that, with that type of trauma that people aren't really trying to help or assist. They'd rather get rid of because that's the issue and they cause too much trouble within the classroom. Whereas our school at PLA at 103, what we want to do is not only teach and educate with rigorous academia, but we want to educate the scholar holistically. So we take care of the mind, the spirit, as well as the academia component, which allowed us the opportunity to change and transform a school that people wanted to get rid of and now individuals would like to come to.
And with that, I do believe, I'm going to end with a quote from one of our grandparents who attended our end-of-year ceremony. This grandparent went on to say that everything you said about this being a different school is true. I was afraid to send my grandson back here. I was afraid for him to get on the school bus. This year has been so great for both of us. He loves going to school and is learning a lot. He passed iRead, and we are ready for 4th grade. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Commissioner Arnold?
Your school has the partnership with the Glick Family
Yes, ma'am.
Foundation, because I know the mobility was a big issue, and that can you just talk a little bit about how that's progressed and what the benefits of that have been?
Okay, having the Glick Foundation with us, we are able to advocate with one of our major complexes that go to school with us. And not only that, but they always come in, they always watch and see what we're doing. So since we have that partnership with that building, we can ask them, who's homeless now? What's happened? Were there shootings last night? Things like that. And the Glick Foundation allowed us the opportunity to do that. They also allot us and allocate funds for us to take different field trips that are culture-based to assist our scholars in having a more cultured opening. Because you'll find that when you're talking about a little bitty baby, sometimes the only place they know is the place where they live. They don't even understand that downtown exists. So we're able to take them places that are like that within their own city.
Do they, because I understood that they would make it where they would not evict families whose children are attending school to cut down on that mobility rate?
Yes, ma'am.
That's part of.
Yes, ma'am. They try their best not to, but sometimes when you have issues that are above and beyond reproach and above and beyond reach, they have to get rid of them. But we've only had 2 families that have been evicted from that partnership, and the rest were able to stay and actually work toward bettering their living environment with the help of the school as well as our parent advocates.
Commissioner Cosby.
So I'm going to ask the same question that I've asked the other 2 presenters. You mentioned early in the presentation that you came into a history of high suspensions, high expulsions. So talk about what you've seen, what you've achieved with your model in place.
Sorry, I deal with that stuff. Well, we were down 69% as far as fights are concerned. The majority of the suspensions that happened were like small, like 1 day or 2 day, because the scholars, unfortunately, they listen to things that they shouldn't and want to try to lash out on their teachers now. And so we're trying to work to figure out a way in which they won't do that. And so what we've done is a restorative type thing where I'll sit the teacher as well as the scholar and their parents down, and we'll have a sit down and discussion in a circle manner, and we talk about what the issues are so that we can be preventative rather than reactionary. So it definitely has decreased our suspensions, decreased our expulsions. We hadn't had any, decreased things like that, and helped with the mental issues that arise within the family as well as the scholar.
And also with that, I think we've got other resources in the building, such as Gallahue and our parent advocates, who have also been able to work with the scholars at home by getting involved with what is going on, so they can kind of bridge that gap between what is actually happening in the classroom and what is happening at home. That brings us a better understanding so that we can work with those scholars on some of those problems that they are having.
Commissioner Iredell.
Given the deficit that the students have, do you have any summer programs?
Yes, sir. We have a Summer Advantage that's actually taking place right now, where we have upwards of, I think, 150 to 200 of our scholars who are attending right now.
And if I could, the deficits were prior to us coming. Yeah. We no longer have deficits like that anymore. Our scholars have grown years. So you can take a kid who was in the 6th grade reading on a 1st grade level, now reads on a 4th grade level. So the scholars in which we were talking about was prior to Phelan Leadership Academy, and we have had gains.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to all of our innovation partners that provided their data this evening, and also progress and challenges from this school year. Next item, we have an opportunity to hear from innovation school proposals that would potentially begin in the 17-18 school year. First, I have an opportunity to hear from Sheila Delasky, who was an innovation fellow and has been playing for a Westside Community Middle School, and will provide a presentation on the model. Thereafter, we have an opportunity to hear from the Purdue University Polytech team. While we've heard from that group previously, it's important to hear from the school leadership on more specifics of the model. With both of these presentations, the outcome expected is the opportunity to hear more on specifics of how the model will be implemented and support our students and families, and then to seek commissioner approval to begin conversation in negotiating a potential innovation agreement. With that, welcome, Sheila.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Sheila Delasky, for those of you I haven't had the chance to meet, and I'm the founding school leader of Westside Community Middle School. So we are so grateful for the opportunity to present in front of you today. There have been a community of stakeholders out on the west side that have been working on designing the model we're going to present. So I asked some of them to join tonight in the presentation. So we're going to start with hearing from Lisa a little bit about why we're here.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lisa Laughlin. I am the Mayor's Neighborhood Advocate for the south part of Center Township and West Indianapolis community. About 3 years ago, West Indianapolis Development Corporation provided some data at their annual strategic planning retreat that included education statistics for the area. These statistics indicated that a high percentage of adults in the community did not have a high school education, and an even higher percentage of current students were in danger of failing middle and high school. This blue-collar community, which had been very negatively impacted by the closing of 2 major auto manufacturing plants, was struggling with economic viability, and great educational opportunities were a huge part of what could be a transition to lift them out of the depression. Enter Sheila Delasky, who was then the principal at Key Learning Community. Sheila heard that initial presentation and immediately started thinking about how she could make a positive impact on that situation. She pulled in stakeholders from all walks of the community, the library, the neighborhood center, local elected and government officials, the local community development corporation, and residents, who started planning a unique to the area concept school that would meet the needs of the community. And not just the educational needs of the students, but the needs of the parent and the community as a whole. The group felt like the best way to fix the problem was to provide a central location where not only middle school students, but also their parents might engage with services that can improve their quality of life. And from a series of meetings, the Westside Community Middle School was born.
Hello, I'm Clark Linneman from Maryburg Neighborhood Center, and I've been in that position for 10 years, but the main role I have a privilege to represent tonight is the voices of that advisory committee. Some of the groups are identified on this one slide, but that really doesn't include the full range of voices that Sheila has worked tirelessly over 1 year in planning this with a deep local commitment. So I just am pleased to report from that advisory committee perspective the steadily working on and laying the groundwork in partnership with Sheila and many of the voices that Lisa mentioned, but including educational experts, students, parent voices, other local community members, local business and industry. It's really a wide range that represents those advisory committee voices. And so I'm pleased to report, as we all know, in really any organization, whether it's a sports team, educational organization, a for-profit business, or any team you can imagine, the more you can involve all voices inclusively up front in the planning, the design, then the implementation and the follow-through and the follow-up celebrations. She's really got an advisory group that's very well poised and has really worked now to take it to the point of almost as far as we can take it, and are anxious to find the exact location so we can even solidify that local West Indianapolis support even further and bring the final student, parent, and other local support to the table. And she'll be very poised for a great success model moving forward.
So our advisory committee has been working over the past year at monthly meetings, and they have done an awesome job. I give them pre-reads for each meeting, they prepare, and then we come in and have discussions. And we've settled on a model that is really focused on 3 main pillars. The first is preparing scholars that are community-minded, college and career ready, and self-empowered. One of the things that we want to make sure is represented in our model is the true middle school experience. So at the meetings that Dr. LeGrand and Dr. Farabee hosted around the community, around grade configuration, somebody from our advisory committee, and usually 2 or 3 of us from the advisory committee, attended the meetings to listen to community feedback, in addition to seeking feedback from parents and students at last year's Westside Back to School Bash. And what we've heard from them, what we've heard from the school board, is that the true middle school experience is something that's really important to our scholars and also to their parents. So our model is designed around teachers being teamed by grade level. We also are looking at using mastery-based grading and planning, which will allow us to provide explicit instruction around the academic piece, but then also making sure that we are explicitly preparing students for the transition to high school and giving them the habits of mind that we know are necessary in high school and beyond. We are looking at after-school programming and athletic opportunities because we know that in middle school, that social aspect that is part of school and being engaged with your peers beyond the school day is incredibly important. And then we also are looking at how we can be a part of the IPS feeder system and really partner with our elementary schools so that we can prepare for the transition into middle school. I want to go a little bit deeper into into how we're going to be grounded in the community. As you can tell, the community has had a huge role in helping to design the school, and a lot of them are the voices that have pushed for some of the middle school changes that the district is now looking at. So one of the major things that really sets us apart are our family access plans, which is something that we'll be piloting in 2 schools next school year. The whole model for the family access plan is really pushing on the idea of schools redefining the relationship that we have with families. So I always say, as a school leader or as a teacher, I've been really fortunate to have an ongoing relationship with families that it's like a true family. You have your ups, you have your downs, but the relationship continues. Our goal is to really leverage that relationship by working with families who are interested in seeking additional resources, and partnering with Goodwill and with Mary Rigg Neighborhood Center, and helping to be the support for families who are interested in attaining a high school diploma or achieving steady job or steady employment. Another component of our being grounded in the community is around our service learning projects and capstone projects in the 8th grade. So something that we know is so important developmentally for middle schoolers is to give them the opportunity to see beyond themselves. So a component of our program is that in 8th grade, all students will be asked to identify an area that they would like to work on within the community, and they'll form teams, and then they'll spend all year working on this capstone project so that we can make sure that they see themselves as advocates and change agents within their local community. And then we also are really excited to share that we are working on a partnership with the Family Access Network, which I'm going to let Mitzi explain more about.
Good evening. I'm Mitzi Wilson. I'm the Early Intervention and Prevention Initiatives Director at the Marion County Commission on Youth. We are actually one of the agencies involved in the collective impact model, which is the Family Access Network, which we also call FAN. Like I said, it's a collective impact model made up of partners that are really seeking to promote the health both of children, families, and communities, taking a holistic approach to improve outcomes for youth and families with a specific focus on the Near West Side. Our partners include the Children's Bureau, Goodwill Industries, Family Development Services, Midtown Mental Health, as well as the Marion County Commission on Youth. So in about 2010, the City County Council's Early Intervention Planning Council came together with the realization after a lot of research and studying that there really needs to be a one-stop shop for families to get access to resources and services. Knowing that, the way that our public transportation is, it is improving, but it's oftentimes very difficult for families to get to resources or multiple different resources at a time, which is why the Family Access Network was born to co-locate services in a single one-stop shop. And really looking to not really recreate the wheel, but to co-locate with education institutions, faith-based institutions, or community centers, with the goal of coordinating available resources to improve efficiency and avoid the duplication of programs, promote the welfare of children and self-sufficiency of families, as well as reduce the number of cases of child abuse and neglect, as well as delinquency, by really pulling together a system of care around youth and families. And so one key aspect of this model is definitely the co-location, being housed alongside another community institution, but we're also taking it a step further in what we call our care pathway. And so we're really looking to not just have the service providers in that one stop, but to have a system of referrals and linkages, as well as common indicators, which is why Family Access Network is a collective impact model, so that we can really see that we're moving the needle and making sure that we're putting the supports in place. We speak in terms of protective factors against a lot of the risk factors that some of the families are on the near west side of the community are facing.
Hello, I'm Kent Kramer, President and CEO of Goodwill Industries, and Goodwill Education Initiatives will proudly serve as the governing board for the Westside Community Middle School. As you've heard, this is the school is being built as an important part of IPS, the community, and Goodwill. At Goodwill, we feel the school will give us a great opportunity to serve out our mission of helping people increase their independence and reach their potential. We also look forward to providing wraparound services to the students and their families, and hopefully linking some of the parents that don't have their high school diploma with our Excel Center. Given the breadth of our organization, as well as our commitment to the West Side and education, we feel that we're positioned very well to support and govern this school. Thank you.
So as we look to a 2017 opening, we are looking to serve 360 scholars. Our ideal model is a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We think that allows us to make the best impact on scholars as they transition to high school, but we are definitely open to further conversation around that to make sure we can be a true partner and feeder within the IPS system. So now that you've heard a little bit about where we've started and what we are proposing, I want to bring us to some next steps. So we are really interested in working with IPS to determine a facility. As you heard from Clark, something that our advisory committee has identified is the missing voices of parents and students at the table, and we feel very strongly that as soon as a facility is established, we'll be able to better engage them in a more authentic manner. We also want to seek input and feedback from the schools that we know will be our feeder schools, so that we are listening to the needs that the teachers and principals and parents have, and then also looking at digging into the data and making sure that over the next year, we are positioning ourselves to truly meet the needs of the students who will be coming through our door. And then finally, we are looking to finalize some of our community partnerships. We have a lot of great things that are happening already, but we are excited to continue those conversations with different entities. So at this point, I would love to open it up to any questions you might have.
Commissioner O'Connor.
Mine's not a question. I just want to identify I am a active member of the Goodwill Board of Directors and a past member of Goodwill Education Initiatives. It's not a board position I am paid for, although I've lobbied for that more than once, but just want to identify that.
Thank you. Commissioner Odle.
You know, what will be the relationship between this school and Goodwill's high school?
So we're definitely looking at partnering with the Excel Centers, which are high schools for adults who have not gone back to school. We are in different conversations about how that will look and how we can target parents that we know need that support. Goodwill also has Indianapolis Metropolitan High School, which is located on Michigan. So we see that as a high school option for students who are interested. They are under new leadership for this upcoming school year and are looking at what they can do to continually grow and evolve.
Commissioner Bentley.
You mentioned the grade configuration, that was not, that you were open to conversations about that, because I know we were having a lot of conversations about grade configuration, and 6, 7, 8 wasn't one of those, part of that conversation, right? I mean, we're trying to move all our 6th graders, or our 6th graders are back in the elementary schools, correct?
Yeah, in the grade configuration conversations, we explained to the community that the directive is to ensure that our middle grade students aren't served with high school students. So beyond that, the conversations have been open to other models, particularly models focused on K-8 or middle grades, 7-8 or 6-8. I do think the challenge of a 6-8 is that currently we serve 6th graders in our elementary school.
Okay, because I would have a concern about putting 6th graders back into a middle school program. I know that it works in some areas, but at least from the parents I've talked to, they fought hard to get this. They were upset when the 6th graders came out of the elementaries. They were excited when the 6th graders were put back in the elementaries. And I think it would be difficult for us if we're going to move towards having K6s and K8s. I think that might be a challenge as far as that transition year. And so I hope that there'll be more conversation about that. So otherwise, I think it sounds very exciting. And it sounds like there's some real some wonderful community partnerships, and I think that's critical. I think anyone who is as passionate about middle school students deserves a big medal. So, kudos to you and your passion for an age that can be challenging sometimes, in a very good way sometimes, but.
Commissioner Arnold?
I too would like to commend my West Side peeps. I know how hard they've worked. I know they've put a lot of energy into this. And one thing about the West Side is there's always a lot of people who are willing. There's a great many resources with Lilly and community centers, nonprofits. So very pleased. I know you talked about the feeder schools, and I know location may have a impact on that. Ideally, if you're located where you think, what would be the feeder elementary schools that would come into this school?
So I don't think at this point we have specific schools. So most of the stakeholders at the table are from the near West Side and West Indianapolis, which is the neighborhood that's like 16th. I can get really technical. There was a map on one slide. There we go. Which is 16th down to Raymond, and then the river over to Tibbs. So it's a pretty big geographic region. We are really interested in talking with the district and really being part of that feeder system, which I think in some ways positions us in a unique spot for what we've seen so far. And so we're open to talking about what those specific schools are, where the need is as the grade configuration conversations evolve, really looking at how can we plug in and be a true partner and make sure that we are helping with what I think I saw the presentation 6 times, Dr. LeGrand, 2,033 seats. Did I get it? Okay, see, yep. So figuring out how we can plug in and be a part of the solution for this big undertaking that you have.
I just had another.
Commissioner Bentley?
And then I know you know, next step, the big next step is to find a facility. And so, and I'm assuming that that's where you want to be, is on the near West Side. So I don't know what we have, what's even available for that purpose. But is that one of the next things you're talking about?
Yes, so from these conversations, if commissioners are supportive of this model and us beginning conversations about potential location and innovation agreement, we'll then move forward with those conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing any concerns? All right. Thank you, Sheila and team, for the presentation. Again, we appreciate the planning and the collaboration that has taken place to bring this model forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Scott Best, head of school for the Purdue Polytechnic High School, and the new school leader, Satoya Jordan. Welcome.
Yep. Good evening. I know it's been a long night. We'll try to be a little bit brief. I also want to note that after Sheila's red slides, we want to bring some black and gold into the place, just to liven it up a little bit. We came here in April and we kind of gave an overview of the school. This will be a little bit the same with some added detail to it. The biggest one is that through the Mind Trust, and thanks to the commissioners, Commissioner Sullivan and Commissioner O'Connor, who served on a selection committee for the Mind Trust to grant an innovation fellowship, we were able to select the person who will be kind of our on-the-ground school leader, school principal, Satoya Jordan. I'm going to let her introduce herself tonight.
Good evening. I'm Satoya Jordan, and I'm not very comfortable talking about myself, so I'm just going to be very, very brief. But the number one thing I would love to say is I am a product of IPS. I started in kindergarten at school 11, and I graduated from Tech. So I'm really excited about coming back. I also am in a capacity of an assistant, and I was a science instructor for IPS for about 7 years. I've worked at Forest Manor, I've worked at Arlington, so I'm really excited about the partnership that we have here with IPS. But most importantly, I've been working with Mr. Best for about 6 years with building and expanding the Excel Centers. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity to get back into the high school and to work with expanding their access to post-secondary, a strong post-secondary plan with Purdue and a quality education. I think our main word is curiosity. As a science teacher, I love that word, and exploration. And so I love being able to come back and to provide that access of curiosity and exploration for our students at Purdue Polytech.
So again, I think some of you have seen this slide before. Whenever President Daniels speaks in public, he talks about two things, is trying to get students better prepared for a workforce, and from a kind of a admittedly selfish thing at Purdue, is really increasing a number of qualified students who to succeed at Purdue, right? And I think that's something he has been big on. And the thing that impressed me the most as we were going through some of the discussions early on was it's easy for a higher learning institution like Purdue to point a finger at K through 12 and say, you've got to do a better job at preparing students for us. And to their credit, they went way farther than anybody else has gone and said, no, we're actually going to do something. We're going to put our name on the line and step out into the community and try to do a high school that would prepare students. So with that, again, the target audience, we're looking for Center Township students. And we are looking for not the top level students, but those students who are kind of in that middle two quartiles, right? Students who are in school today, they're not prepared for college, or not thinking about college, or not thinking about a technology related career, and giving them an opportunity for something completely different that exists today, certainly in the city, and we would argue perhaps even within the state. Challenging, real world problems, work-based learning, certainly internships and all those kinds of things take place, community partnerships, business partnerships along with that. Size-wise, again, obviously we're talking about grades 9 through 12, starting with 150 students in 2017, growing by 150 students a year. You see the 120 in the out years. We're anticipating there'll be some attrition, but our hope is that that number stays at 150. We're fully prepared to have 600 students here. Calendar, again, 8-week sessions, really focused, intensive instruction. Longer days, but again, not necessarily longer. Don't think of students sitting in classrooms from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Think about lots and lots of different things happening throughout that time. Heavily project-based. If you think of high school, in a lot of cases, as I go to algebra, then I go to biology, then I go to English 9, and then I go to world history. It's not that. It's projects with the standards that exist across all those different subject areas brought into the projects, and students are able to go deeper into that or to get the remediation they need when appropriate. So again, a very different design of the high school. We're in the beginning parts of really going deep into the curriculum piece of that. The really cool thing is turns out there's lots of really smart people running around Purdue who have lots of passion for this work and are really starting to tap into that. We're looking at locating within a developing neighborhood. Again, we don't want to go someplace where the neighborhood is gentrified, where we have a full-on upper middle class type students coming into the school. Those students already, again, generalizing, typically have been successful at going on to higher education. We want to locate in a place where students can come and do something different. Our target demographic within the IPS district and Center Township, and I think that's one thing that I'll talk about in a little bit that is a little concerning to us, is that because it has the Purdue name on it, because it is largely STEM focused, the largest number of inquiries we're getting about the school today, just in the very early stages, come from outside of Marion County. It comes from Hamilton County, Boone County, Hendricks County, and that's fine, and we think all those people are wonderful, lovely people. We want to serve Marion County and Center Township specifically, and so that's why for us, the partnership with IPS is so important to us. We want easy transit to, we have a lot of business partners as we're in discussions with folks like Eskenazi and Cummins and Rolls-Royce and Lilly and all the other, the kind of the usual partners, but also smaller, really intensely focused companies doing interesting things like, urban farming and those types of things. Again, as it turns out, Purdue has an agriculture department that is really interested in the school and wants to co-locate some services with us. High tech, we're Purdue. And serving the educational needs. So again, just a sense of again, an open environment. Floor plan, we'd like to be open, a little more innovative, not necessarily hallways and, cinder block classrooms to speak of. So with the partnership, I'm going to let you want to jump in on this one?
As he spoke a little bit about the students that are very interested in our school, I would like to target Center Township students. As I look on your website, you guys serve 79% of your students that are minorities. And so I want to tap into that. I want to get minorities in our building. I want them to be able to have access to a pathway to Purdue. I want to spark their curiosity and look at something that's outside of their norm. I want to talk about science. I want to talk about technology. I want to talk about, chemistry. When I say chemistry, I want to talk about what they use to clean and what's in that and what destroys our environment and how can we build solutions for that. So I'm really excited because I've been outside of IPS for quite a bit of time, and I've been able to work with adults that have come from Center Township, and I'm really excited about getting back into the 14 years and the freshmen to the seniors to get them access to that exploration that I've been able to give to the adults that come from Center Township. So.
And again, we think, from the, as I mentioned, with the ensuring that the demographics match what we want, that's why we, from our end, from Purdue's end, we feel like the innovation agreement is key to that, to have access to IPS 8th graders, to counselors, to teachers, to understand who best fits the school and not just who happens to randomly select us because they've heard about us or because they think their kid might want to go to Purdue. And again, like I said, we want to increase college and career opportunities for minority students to enter Purdue. Every major university will tell you they struggle sometimes to get the large numbers. Not that they don't get students, but the large numbers of students in the way that it should be that matches what Indiana's demographics look like, or certainly Indianapolis demographics look like. We think we're going to have an innovative approach to high school. That's one thing that we think we hopefully can bring to the district and partner with schools. I know you have some amazing programs, certainly at Tech and other places around the city. We're going to open up our school to anybody that wants to come in. And I think we look at shared professional development, we look at programming, we look at things that we discover that we can bring to the table. We have Purdue Bound, which has been around for a long, long time. We want to expand that and make that available to more students. And in the younger grades, if you talk about, again, trying to get students at younger ages interested in technology, interested in STEM careers, and understand that there are possibilities out there, we want to be able to open that up as much as possible. So we think it's important to us. And again, I would echo the guys that came earlier in the evening. The work with Alicia and David and Scott Martin and others, as we started just exploring opportunities in terms of facilities, have been nothing short of amazing. I think I've lost count of the number of buildings we've been in, and I think it's just been a terrific opening to this, and we're looking forward to hopefully continuing that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you've got.
Commissioner Cosby.
So I may have missed this, but did you end up choosing a building? Have you defined a location?
We're getting close. I mean, generally we're looking at, if we can, the east side of Indianapolis. Again, that's something that we're working on. I think if you all say, hey, let's move forward with some of the negotiations, I think then again working with Alicia and David and diving into some of the actual locations and specific buildings, I think we'll get there pretty quickly. That's one of our goals, is to get there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any concerns moving forward? All right. The next section is unfinished business. The first item is 9.01. It's a continuation with our partnership with ERS, Education and Resource Services, to continue Phase 4 of our work. Request that commissioners approve the agreement for Phase 4 as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the agreement as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is item 9.02. which is a continuation of our agreement with Parallel Employment Group to support substitute staffing in schools for the 16-17 school year. Request that Commissioners approve the agreement as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the agreement as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Yes, Commissioner Cosby?
I have a brief question, and we spoke about this, I think, last month or the month before. There was an item to increase this amount toward the end of the school year to cover additional need for substitute teachers. And I'm just wondering where that ended up, and if you have to email it at a later time, that's fine, but I'm just curious as to the amount we spent as of the end of the school year.
Yeah, it was $714,000.
Total, and that was not for
I'm sorry, just for the increase.
Okay. So, wow, that's a lot. So how much, that was for a very limited time frame.
May and April.
So in a 2-month time period, we spent $714,000 on substitute teachers. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Because we're happy to have that coverage in those classrooms that wouldn't have the teachers, but I guess the other side of the coin is a desire to have permanent teachers. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So how can we balance that maybe, and what are we doing to recruit, I guess, permanent teachers?
And that's not necessarily the cost of long-term subs. That's just absences. So one of the things that we're looking at is just sort of what we can do to incent less absences across the year, what our absence policies are, and FMLA as well rates. So a lot of that is just some data crunching that we need to start to do. But we do, when you look across the year, the highest number of absences is always in the spring. So April, May, and June.
Okay.
That's just, they're always going to be slanted in that direction.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that update.
Any other comments? Commissioner Odle?
It would be good if we could get, sort of presentation at some future date on just what is our absentee rate, and what is our use of substitutes, overall, some future time.
I think, possibly.
Commissioner Bentley,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, thank you. Well, then, like by school, because I would assume that if you had high rates of absenteeism, it could point to other things, correct? I mean, it's not, if certain schools were skewing higher absentee rates than other schools, could that potentially be, pointing to an issue within the school? I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know if that would be something to look at.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
We have, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. We have talked with principals. I think comparing where we will be in the 16-17 school year in the past, I think maybe a little tricky. I don't know that would be a true comparison of Fuji apple to Fuji apple, because many times we have had lots of comments from teachers that they just didn't take a day off because they were concerned that they may not have a substitute or there's a need to split a class. But we also have talked with principals about not abusing, this support as well, and to continue to monitor teacher absenteeism. Teacher attendance and student attendance continues to remain on our radar as indicators of success. We know that if we have students and teachers present, we have more opportunity to advance learning and outcomes.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is 9.03, which are policy modifications. I believe it was discussed at the agenda review session. The request is to waive the 30-day requirement based on our statutory requirements as relates to these policy changes.
Our board administrator has recommended that we waive the 30-day waiting period, and as these proposals involve only minor changes to the language, so do I have a motion to waive the 30-day waiting period?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 7712, approving the policy modifications as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? And I will need a roll call for this as well, please.
Commissioner Arnold?
Yes.
Commissioner Bentley?
Yes.
Commissioner Commissioner Cosby.
Yes.
Commissioner Eccles. Yes. Commissioner O'Connor.
Yes.
Commissioner Odom.
Yes.
President Sullivan.
Yes. Motion carries.
The next section is section 10. We previously took action on item 9.04. The first item in section 10 in new business is 10.01. It's a recommendation for a declaration of surplus real property. We ask that commissioners approve the surplus for declaration of property as relates to the Facilities Management Division Building, FMD, and the Mallory Ford Warehouse.
Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 7714 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Cosby?
Sorry, quick question. I mean, what are the plans for relocation of the things that these facilities house currently?
The majority of the staff in these facilities will be spread among the Forest Manor campus and the Ed Center, but we will provide, as requested, a displacement plan that outlines where all the staff will go, not only from these particular facilities, but also the skips as well, just to ensure that Commissioner and the public are aware of where staff will be housed in the future.
And would the timeline be for next school year, or how quickly do you anticipate this moving?
We don't have a timeline at this time. We will, again, work with our Real Estate Advisory Council on the process that we've used in the past, ensuring that we'll able to get offers on these particular properties. But as we do that, we'll develop plans to transition out the facility.
I'd like to record that I'm recusing myself from voting on this issue. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries.
The next item in new business is 10.02, which is a request for approval of grade configuration changes for the 2016-17 school year and accompanying forms for the Indiana Department of Education. It's important to note that these changes include changes to grade levels at select schools across the district.
Do I have a motion to approve the school configuration changes as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Arnold first.
Remind me, I know we're taking the junior high out of Broad Ripple because of expanding the visual and performing arts school up to 8th grade. So can children select which one? Just remind me of how the transition plan works.
And so those students that were previously at Broad Ripple and were in 6th grade when we made the decision to transition to a K-8 campus at Edison for the arts had an opportunity to stay at Broad Ripple until they enter the 9th grade or transition to Edison. Edison will open at the new campus this fall, and those students that are currently in 6th grade at Broad Ripple at that time are transitioning up, and then we'll phase out those grade levels, and Broad Ripple will only serve grades 9 through 12, and Edison will serve grades K through 8.
We know of the current junior high or the 6th and 7th graders that were at Broad Ripple this past school year. How many of them want to stay at Broad Ripple and how many want to transition to Edison?
If my memory serves me correctly, most of the students want to stay at Broad Ripple, but we can get specific data on it. Yeah.
Commissioner Cosby?
So my question was on Riverside and Joyce Kilmer, where it says innovation growth only, if you could just briefly tell me what that means.
There's a provision in statute that allows for the transition of the accountability model as relates to a restart for those schools that are converting to innovation, which allows the accountability to be modified to a growth-only model as those schools transition to innovation. And the thinking around that is, if schools transition to innovation, they didn't want to be penalized for previous performance, and to ensure that they had a fresh start for their restart, we were primarily evaluating those schools for growth versus growth of proficiency.
Got it, thank you. And then Phelan is going from pre-K to 6 up to pre-K to 7. Are they going to eventually be pre-K to 8?
We, again, haven't made decisions around whether that campus will be a K-8 campus, but as a request from the community and family in that school, we have allowed those current 6th graders to remain at that campus for 7th grade as a K-7. As part of our conversation as relates to grade configuration for middle grades, we can make a determination either to return the campus back to a K-6 campus or transition to a K-8.
Is it just one class, essentially like 30 kids or so?
I believe so. Essentially, it's one class. But again, that would also, for those students there to remain there in their 7th grade year. And again, I believe that conversation has already been had with families on what that option is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Commissioners have already acted on item 10.03, so next item is 10.04. Finance Committee Charter. Recall at our agenda review session, Mr. Young provided the background information on the need to establish this charter to provide guidance and regulations to outline the membership and scope of duties and expectations for members appointed to the Finance Committee.
There's no action at this time.
I do.
I just want to make sure that we consider that issue about how many members have to live in the district for future consideration.
Yeah, we're going to bring that up with the committee for future consideration. And we can alter amend the documents at any time.
Does any commissioner wish to offer closing comments at this time?
I just had a couple
Commissioner
comments
Bentley?
I wanted to make. I think that, a couple of the presentations today sort of gave a shout out to FMD, and I think sometimes we forget all the behind the scenes people that make this district run, facilities management, food service, transportation, and we have quite a few very talented people that are leaving the district or retiring, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Jane Cookson, who's been the director of food service for many years and has been in the district for many years. I think it's one of those just behind the scenes positions, and we don't think a lot about it. The food shows up and it tastes pretty good sometimes. She hears that a lot. I know, Commissioner Sullivan and I had the opportunity to tour the food service facility a few months ago, and it is a huge operation. I think sometimes we forget that. I mean, how many students are we feeding every day? It's a lot. Yeah, all of them. About 30,000. And when you see that many hamburger buns sitting along in there. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them specifically, but then just to all of the people in the district that keep the place running smoothly. And I think it'd be nice if we could sort of give those shout outs every month, because while we're about teaching and learning, there's a lot that goes on, to keep the boat afloat. And then again, we've had some deaths in the district recently, and I wanted to hold up Linda Hogan, who passed away, and I'm going to get choked up, but she was one of probably the first people that I met when I initially was elected to the school board back in '98. She was at the time the director of the Even Start program, which was an amazing program that was funded through the federal government. Unfortunately, they no longer fund it. And she was such an incredible advocate for that program and for the students and the parents, because it was a preschool program that included GED classes for the parents of those students. And then since then, she's just always been an incredible advocate for early childhood education in IPS. And I just wanted to, she's going to be missed. She spent 40 years in the district. And I think I truly believe she helped advance some of the conversations in the city about the need to expand early childhood education. So she certainly was a strong advocate for that for many, many, many years. And I think we owe her a lot for her advocacy and her vision for preschool education and IPS. So she will be missed.
Anyone else? Dr. Farabee?
Again, I would echo the comments from commissioners in regards to graduations and opportunity to participate and provide comments at the Arsenal Technical High School graduation, and then just recognizing the class of 2016, also their scholarship. I believe it's a clear signal that we are preparing more students to leave us to be either enrolled, listed, and employed. So excited about their accomplishment there and a dramatic increase in scholarships. I remind the community that we continue to provide summer meals across the city for breakfast and lunch at our location. So want to encourage our families and our students to continue to participate. Also want to express gratitude for the partnership with Gleaners, who also support us in summer feeding, but has joined forces with IPS to provide book exchange at our summer feeding sites where students can come and pick up books and drop off books and continue their reading throughout the summer. I also want to recognize the Arts Council for continuing to advance our conversation and planning around the Kennedy Center Any Given Child grant. Really excited about the collaboration, the conversation that we had about leveraging the resources to expose our students to the arts in Indianapolis. So look forward to hearing more about the great work that's happening there.
Thank you, Dr. Farabee. Having completed all items on the agenda, our next meeting will be our work session on Tuesday, July 19th at 6 p.m. in the Media Center at School 39. Thank you to everyone who came out this evening. The meeting is adjourned.